Welcome to the Achieve Success Podcast. I'm your host, Nathaniel F. Jones. Each week I feature ordinary people who have accomplished great things. Tune in to get inspired by tips that will help you reach your goals in business and life as you strive to become the best version of yourself and achieve success.
All right. So, what do you do on the copyrights? Not the copyrights, but the trademarks. What are those?
So those are it's a mixture of the actual business name and then all of the intellectual property within the business that I want to make sure I have legally covered. So that's why I did those trademarks. Make sure nobody else had the name. I think when you start doing trademarks and copyrights and all those things, that's when you know that you are legitimately trying to make the business work. If you don't have copyrights, if you don't have trademarks, patents, things like that, to me, it's like an underlying belief that you don't really think it's going to work anyway, so not putting that money into it and everything.
Right.
So yeah, it's for the new business venture.
Gotcha. Now you're talking about for a new business venture. I really can't keep up with you because I feel like every other month or so, like it's something new. So the last venture is it Ona?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So the last one was Ona, and man, y'all just wrong for putting out that video. Like you just wrong for doing that video because I was like,
which one was that?
The recap video, the preview video that kind of show what happened over the weekend. I was like, he wrong for that. You were really wrong for that. For those of you that missed it, for those of you that missed it, this is what you missed.
Right. And it was like, you could tell from the video, it was hype, man. We had a ball, I apologize, man. I'm sorry that, you could make, but no, Ona, it's our marriage ministry. So I'm trying to do every aspect of whatever business I'm involved in. I'm trying to set it up right. So Ona is the marriage branch of our business, and Ona, we had that conference video that you're talking about. That was our first conference that we put together. So we put it out for like a month and some change, tried to run some deals, and it was like nobody was biting. So then I think I Googled like how sell out your conference or something like that. And there was 2 pretty good articles that I found. We kind of followed those tracks, and from that we were able to pretty much sell out we sold out. Like we didn't have an empty seat to give up. We had to, at the very end, there were some people that snuck in, but we had to actually turn people away because it was full.
Wow.
So it was pretty dope.
That's awesome, man. I want to kind of thank you for accepting the invitation to the podcast. And everybody so far that has accepted, like, you guys have no idea what it is that I'm doing. All you know is I sent you an invitation and I said, this is the name of it. And you guys gladly said, sure. And to me, that's like really speaks volumes because it either means that you're doing it because you like me, or you're doing it because you trust me. Then I'm not going to do anything crazy and put you out there on Front Street. There's this one young lady that I only know her through Facebook. We met through a Black-owned business Facebook group, and that's the only way I know her. Never seen her in person, but she said, "You don't post anything crazy. I know where we met." So she's like, "I figured it'd be good."
Yeah.
So, but it's really been amazing and such a blessing, man. So what it is that I'm trying to do, Achieve Success is a book idea that I have, kind of a autobiographical type book that uses me as an example of someone who I say is ordinary, just a regular guy that has been able to accomplish some things over time and in life. And what I have found in accomplishing those things is I have found a measure of empowerment. The subtitle for the book will be Empowerment through entrepreneurship, is the subtitle for the book. Um, and I'll just talk about what I've done, the things that we've accomplished, my wife and I, and how I feel like it's empowered us to feel like we really can do anything. Any challenges
Sure.
that come, we can overcome them. And I want to be able to tell others the story in hopes of inspiring them to the same, to the same end, of empowerment, but using entrepreneurship as the vessel for that. So kind of as a kind of related, I had another book idea roughly about 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, and another Facebook friend and I had inbox conversation about it, and I never did anything. Well, fast forward to 2 years later, he puts a status up that says, "Hey, who has been thinking about writing a book, and why haven't you done it?" And of course, I responded, and I consider this guy a pretty good marketer. And I responded, and sure enough, boom, he's in my inbox. "Hey man, so I see, you're interested in writing a book and you haven't done it." Well, come to find out, in the inbox, the inbox keeps track of everything, right?
Yeah.
Almost 2 years to the month, we had a conversation about me writing a book. So of course he checked me on it. He's like, "Hey man, it's been 2 years. What's the deal? Why haven't you written this book?" I had no excuse other than I had not taken action. So he said, "Look, you need to get this book done, and I'm going to help you do it." So that was the impetus for me to take action to get the book done. That particular book was a book about selling cars, or the idea was, hey, I want to write a book to help me, show me as a subject matter expert in automobile selling.
Absolutely.
So he gave me some tips. Hey, these are resources you can use. Set me on my way, and we set a date, which was my birthday about a week ago, and boom, bam, got it done. And it's out. The ebook is ready right now. I'm holding off on doing the paperback because I want to have the copyright when the paperback comes out. So the ebook is kind of like a little bit of a tease because it only has information on how to get the best price when you're looking to buy the car. The book will have not only how to get the best price, but how to get the most for your trade, and also how to make sure you're getting the best finance rates. So it's a little bit more information in the paperback. So I'm kind of holding that back a little bit again until I get the copyright. So that's why when I saw your envelope, I was pretty excited. So he pushed me. We got that done. So instead of me waiting another 2 years to write this other book, I decided to do something else. I decided to take action in a different way. And that way was this forum, this podcast, as I'm calling it. I said, rather than me waiting to tell my story, I said, I know tons of people that I personally consider successful, people that I feel embody the essence of what my book will be. People who I feel are ordinary people, but I feel like they've accomplished a measure of success and their story could inspire other people.
Right.
And that's the reason why I reached out to you and many others, is because you are all people that I admire. You're people that I look up to. You're people that I feel that have achieved a measure of success. And I feel like whatever your story is, and I don't know everybody's story, and that's been the beauty in this whole process, is as I'm doing this interview, I'm finding out things about these people that I consider friends that I didn't even know, that's making me appreciate that friendship even more and have even more respect for them. So that's why I have you on, because, I know you from way back in the day, in a totally different atmosphere and situation, right? And over the years, we have evolved over the years. And when I say I'm impressed, I mean, going all the way back, I think it was the first book that I saw you do, and you did like a YouTube on it or something. And I was like, wait a minute, I think I know this guy. It was the book about the addiction that you had.
Right.
I was like, is that Tim? Wow. And then not too long after that, then, you know, I saw that, you know, you had gotten into the ministry, and then there was another book here, and then there was the farm, and then now is the marriage ministry. And I'm just
Sure.
like, I am just like so impressed with you and Jenny and what you guys have done and what you guys are doing. And I just feel like you guys absolutely embody what it is that I'm trying to communicate to people about being able to achieve success. So tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, I got 3 kids that keep me on my toes. And I want to say their ages are 7, 13, and 16. I think I'm pretty right about that. I've been married to my wife, Jennifer, for 18 years. And, you know, when you say you've seen different businesses or books coming out, my philosophy is the same as I've heard many other people say, is like fail fast. So it's all a measured attempt at making the bigger run at life. And that's kind of me. So the first book is your, you know, jumping out there, seeing what it feels like, seeing what sales feel like. And then the next book, the next book, and the next book. Even with the farm stuff, it started with a little small, like 3x4 plot with the kids, you know, and we planted some stuff, and then we came back after all of our stuff had come up, maybe, you know, about a half a foot out the ground. We came back to check on our beans and cucumber plants, stuff like that, and rabbits had just ravaged our whole little 3-foot plot had gotten eaten by a bunch of rabbits. And that was the first year. And of course, with farming, you know, you got to catch season. So it was too late to start over. So the next year, it was a bigger plot with a little fence around it. The next year, a bigger plot. And then what you probably saw online was I used my father's land for my next measured test, I guess you could say. He has about an acre back there. And that's where the bigger effort came from. And so the next move, hopefully you'll see me with like 5 or 6 acres with a couple of cows walking around or something, you know. But that's me, man. I love farming. My wife and I love helping couples. Of course, we have our book, 100 Black Facts, that is my offering to the culture. You know, I can't focus on it 100%, but I definitely want people to know that I'm very much for my culture, for my people. So that was kind of like my offering for that, to make sure I'm trying to do my part in that arena. And then I got some stuff coming out later this year that will, again, define, I guess you could say, my spiritual side. And I want to say that this is going to be it. This is going to be the big shebang. So we'll see, which is why I'm spending so much time on.
It ain't gonna. That's not gonna be it. That's not gonna be it. It's not.
It's gonna be the thing to fund everything else, you know. But that's me, man. I love business. I love branding. More so than even just for myself. I even love helping people that have ideas that maybe can't put it together quite as quick as I can, and being able to help them put something together and them seeing the value in it. I just love helping people, you know.
Gotcha. So how did you? And there's you're so multifaceted. So it's kind of a loaded question to ask about, you know, your current career and how you chose it, because on one hand, you know, you're an entrepreneur, and on another hand, you know, you're a minister. So kind of help us understand that dynamic, and kind of how you got into either or both of those arenas.
Sure. For the spiritual side, the ministry side of things, that came from when I was 15 years old, me feeling my call to preach. And you kind of know my background when it comes to the religion stuff. So we're very fanatical when it comes to the religious stuff, and we go all in, whether it's right or wrong. we go 100% into it. And somewhere in all of that, I managed to find God at 15 years old, you know. And so I've been kind of following that trail. That's the one constant, is entrepreneurship and ministry. And so the way they bring themselves together is, entrepreneurship is, I don't really want to work for anybody. Like, I hate working for people and having a boss. But I love working for God, and I love God being my boss. So that's where I kind of mesh the two. So right now I'm an executive pastor at the church. And so that allows me to bring my entrepreneurial skills into the church setting, and as far as systems, as far as branding, marketing, things like that. It helps me be able to touch every facet of the church with my entrepreneurial skills, but also by teaching and preaching and things like that. So it's actually probably the best balance right now that I've ever had in my life between entrepreneurship and ministry, you know.
Gotcha. So did you go to college or trade school or something to prepare you for these avenues that you've chosen?
So I'm in college right now for the farming aspect of it. Just got through a whole year of it. I'm glad. I got a summer class coming up that I'm excited about because it's just online and it's watching videos and feeling some fill in the blank type stuff. So I'm really excited about that. But with the ministry side, I've been in it. Literally, I was raised in it. I was born on a pew. You might as well say. My parents have always had me in church. So you're talking about numerous certificates. You're talking about numerous classes, college courses, all of that good stuff. And then on the entrepreneurial side, it's the failed businesses, it's the businesses that work, it's the failed business ideas, not the whole business, but just business principles that couldn't quite grasp. And then finally one day you get it. It's like, oh, I got it now. And so when both of those mix, what happens is, or what happened for me is that I've been doing it for so long that suddenly I found myself qualified for an executive pastor position. It's like, man, you know this, you know how to do that, you know how to do this system, you know how to do that structure, you know how to research, you know how to do all these things, and not just like in my head qualify, because you know how we do sometimes. Sometimes we qualify ourselves, and then everybody's like, bro, you're not qualified, you know? So it wasn't just me, you know, dreaming someone like, yeah, I know I'm qualified. It's like reality. No, you're not, man. And because of that, so I won the respect of my peers, won the respect of people around me, to the point it shocked me when I started getting job offers at these churches to fill their executive pastor role. I'm like, for real, you want me? And it's due to just putting in year after year after year after year and actually retaining whatever I learned, whether it came by, you know, positive things and negative things. I just retained it. And then I became a pretty good version of who I am. Not the best yet, but a pretty good version.
Right. So you're jumping ahead a little bit. So
Right.
that's usually at the end of the question, or at the end of the interview, that question about becoming the best version of yourself. So we're gonna hold that right there.
Sure.
So I mean, I find that very interesting, and so obviously there's a reason why I ask the questions that I ask, because there's some people out there that that may say, well, you know, what qualifies you to do this, and not you per se, but just an individual, right? You know, and these questions are largely based upon me and sort of my life. So, you know, it's one of those things where the only thing that I really knew was to go to high school and then go to college afterwards, and then, you know, whatever. And it wasn't even like a plan to go. It was just like, that was the next thing. And what I learned and what I found was that because it was just the next thing, when I got to college, I wasn't really motivated. I was just there. I mean, the work was not a challenge. It wasn't like difficult, you know, and I was just there. And then there were times when I just didn't want to go to class just because I was like, oh, I'm good. I got an A. I'm just not going to go. And then I'll miss 6 days and then I get incomplete in a class. So I went to school on scholarship for 4 years. And this brother right here really wasted away about a little over a semester, because springtime would come, it gets warm, the girls start taking their clothes off.
Sure.
You know, and it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, miss class, hang out on the yard or whatever. So I always ask the question about going to college, because I now do not believe that that is necessarily the path for everyone, right?
Sure.
To go to high school and then go to college. I now strongly believe that success can be had without going that traditional route. So my whole focus on entrepreneurship is in a hope that early on that we will catch some middle schoolers, some high schoolers that would be exposed to entrepreneurship and hear and see stories about entrepreneurs that will give them that idea, maybe I can start a business. And I feel that in general, and it just might be because of experience, that I feel in general, there is more of an awareness about entrepreneurship in general. But it could just be because it's on my radar now than years ago. But I just feel like that's not necessarily the route. So I ask people the question, did you go to college? Because really the
Sure.
reason I do is I want to highlight the fact that you don't necessarily have to go to a 4-year school or necessarily have to go to trade school, whatever, to be successful in life, right? Because you can acquire skills many other ways. I feel like
Right.
there's YouTube University now. I mean, really, anything that's in any textbook anywhere can be found via the internet. If we're really honest with it, right? What you
Sure. Yeah.
don't have is that person, that instructor that's in front to help guide you, maybe ask some questions that you may have. But generally speaking, we can, if we want to know how to do something, we can find it. We can find the answer on how to do it. It's readily
Right.
available for us. We just have to ask the right questions. When you ask the right questions, you'll get the right answers. So that's kind of the reason why I asked that question. So Tim, how did you get to this level of success? And when I say level of success, I always want my guests and followers to understand this is my subjective opinion of you and success, right? So
Mm-hmm.
someone may say, no, this person has not achieved anything. But in my eye, again, you're a published author. You've had, several businesses. You are a leader. You are an influencer. So in my mind, you are a success. You have achieved success. So how did you get to this level of success?
Okay. I mean, like you said, some of these are loaded questions, right? But I think, man, it's hard to put into context, but I feel like I was born for success, right? First of all, that's what I truly, really believe. However, the distractions and the dysfunctions that were in between me and who I was really supposed to be were very heavy and plenteous. So for me, getting to where I am today, I would have to say you've got to learn how to tackle dysfunction, and you've got to learn how to define and acknowledge what environments you are in. It's these things that kept me distracted from who I really was. So being in the wrong environments, being in dysfunctional situations, and then internally, all the same things, what I believed about myself, who I believed myself to be, the people that I allowed to tell me who I was and what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing. All of these things negatively affected me, whether it was me or somebody else, from keeping me from who I really am, which is a successful person by birthright, I feel. So it was a long, arduous process of getting things out the way and continuously breaking through distractions, breaking through opinions. And then that's when I kind of found myself on the other side of, oh, okay, now I can work without hindrance. I can get up early. I can go to bed late. I can do these things without 3 or 4 different thoughts coming into my head about what it is I'm currently doing. If you get up early, well, man, maybe you don't feel like getting up early. Maybe you're tired because you didn't see your parents didn't teach you how to grind, how to really go after it. So I got to fight that mentality. Maybe I should just sleep to 8 instead of getting up like Eric Thomas says, you know what I mean? So it's like fighting through the mentalities, fighting through all that stuff. And that, I would say that's how I'm able to be who I am today, is by just a bunch of distractions, dysfunction, get through all those things and realize, oh, I'm I am somebody, you
Right.
know.
So you said that for you it was getting through the distractions and finding that place where you felt like you were destined for success. And when you said it immediately, I wanted to stop you and ask you a question, but I'd let you finish.
Thank you.
So, and I think is very powerful what you said. How or why did you feel that you were destined for success?
There would be flare-ups of evidence. So, you know, you know my story. So where we come from, you're not playing basketball, you're not playing football. Sports is out of the picture, right?
Right.
So the easiest example I can give is when you're on the basketball court or playing football and you're beating all the other guys, or you're scoring just as many as the guy who's like one of the best on the team. It's just little flare-ups. Like, it may not mean much to many people, but it's little flare-ups like that where it's like, man, you're really good at this.
Right.
But due to church,
Right.
you're not allowed to do that.
Right.
So then I'm like, okay. So then I walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Or if there's some kind of equation somebody's trying to figure out, or some kind of problem somebody's trying to work through, and I just so happen to be in that circle of people, I'm like, oh, that's easy. You should just blah, blah, blah. And I spit something out that makes sense. And everybody's like, oh, that's great. And it may be one person in there that might pick on me or say something about me that makes me go back to a shell and believe that what I just did wasn't that great. But it was a flare-up of like, hey, man, you've got wisdom. You've got wisdom that's just it's just in you, you know? So it would be all these different flare-ups that would happen that would just tell me that I was destined for more.
Right. I mean, that's so powerful, and that's great illustrations, because generally in life, they say that usually by 2 years old, a child starts hearing no so many times, it really starts to kill their desire for exploration and reaching and stretching themselves, right? Or by some age, and I don't want to misquote that, but it's proven that in general, in us as human beings, after a certain time, we start hearing no so often, or stop, or you can't, that we start internalizing that. And it's not until many of us get older and are exposed to excuse me one second, and are exposed to a whole another way of thinking, that really it opens back up your mind to the possibilities. And I mean, as you're saying that, like, I remember the same thing, like, Tim Fluid, right, Brother Tim?
Yep.
So, we used to play football on Sundays in between morning service and Sunday service, right?
Okay.
So, exact same thing you said. I would go out there and nobody could catch me. They couldn't tackle me. But we couldn't play on the team. We couldn't play for the school. So, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, man, what did I miss out on because of that? And of course, you and I have a certain understanding. So just for our listeners, our followers, just so that you guys aren't totally lost, like we're having an inside conversation, Tim and I used to attend a really conservative apostolic ministry that believed that, we shouldn't wear shorts, and, we should be separate from the world, and basically it sheltered us. And I remember, dude, like for real, I wanted to wrestle so bad, but you can't, the singlet, like,
nah, there's no way.
I wanted to run track, the shorts.
There's no way.
So really what that does, and even if you're not in that kind of a structure, but outside of that in life, what happens oftentimes, like you said, Tim, is individuals have these flashes of brilliance, but then they get shut down by the people that are around them. No, that's a silly idea. No, you can't do that. Why would you do that? But the whole time inside, this person is destined for greatness. They have great ideas, great thoughts, but they are kept from exploring those things. And that's such a great point that you bring out in that aspect, is that all of us are destined for greatness.
Absolutely.
Each one of us. It may not be in the same lane, right? We may not be destined all for greatness in the same lane, in the same trade, in the same profession, with the same skill sets, but each and every one of us is destined for greatness. And once you open your mind to the possibility that you really can achieve and do anything, you'll find it. Like it'll reveal itself to you, because then now you're open to, hey, what can I do? And then just naturally you'll be given these thoughts and these ideas, and then when you follow them, they'll lead to greatness. Absolutely.
Right, they'll lead to
greatness.
For sure.
One of the things that I like to ask about, you talked about Eric Thomas. So, of course I like ET. One of the things that I ask folks is, what do you do on a daily basis to ensure that you are achieving the goals that you have set, to ensure that you're meeting your standards?
Sure.
I call it a daily success routine.
Absolutely. I had to change up last year because I wanted certain things and I wasn't seeing what I wanted manifest. So I'm like, man, there's got to be something wrong with what I'm doing. So I'm going to listen to people like ET. I'm going to try to take it all in. But my biggest thing that I changed was my schedule, honestly. Of course, my wife is always right? So she says, maybe you should, I think that you go best by your schedule. And so I'm like, whatever. And she's like, no, you really need to start writing stuff down or putting things in your calendar and things like that, because you just do better. But for me, and this may be a long way to answer it, but the distractions, the dysfunctions, all those things, the mentalities that have been keeping me from what I'm supposed to be doing, it felt like it was locking me into something. Like, that's boring. Like, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, I want to spread my wings and fly. If I introduce this calendar and all these different things, it means I'm locked into a schedule once again, and I can't be creative. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm not seeing the results that I wanted to see, I said, let me change my schedule up. So I'm like, I'm going to wake up 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning every day, and I'm going to go to bed, or I'm going to wind down around 11 and end up going to bed at like 12. And I'm going to do this 3 or 4 times a week. And then 3 or 4 times a week, and then rest on the other days, but make sure that I'm getting up, like 7, something like that. Just get a couple of extra hours and things like that. So the biggest change was me waking up. So with this whole pandemic going on, it threw my schedule off because the kids don't get up early anymore. My daughter, she gets up at 5:30 to go to school. So it was very easy because I had to be responsible to get her to the bus stop, all those things. Well, that stopped. So I took like a 2-week hiatus, and all of my productivity just dropped off. Like, the things I'm watching Netflix, and I know good well I should be doing something, So I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And then when I looked at it, I'm like, I'm not waking up anymore. So after failing for those couple of weeks, I'm like, man, I got to get back up. So I changed my schedule back to what it was, regardless of their school. So I'm the only one up in the morning. Now my wife will, like, if I don't answer my alarm, she'll give me that nudge, like, go ahead and get up, go do what you got to do. But what that did is it caused an intense focus that's why when people look at what I've been accomplishing this year, and I'm not trying to toot my horn, I'm just saying the reason why I'm able to put out work so fast or maybe so often is because of that schedule. It allows me time where nobody's up bothering me, nobody's saying anything. I'm just working. So that's why trademarks are going in, patent is going in, copyrights are going in. I've already, published 2 books this year already. The owner, already did a conference, already got something else in the works. So I'm like, 2020 is catching all the smoke. And I really believe it's because of the schedule. Other than that, I don't think I'll be able to have enough time to do it all.
Yeah. That's so key. And I don't know that people really realize how important that is. If you follow or listen to anybody that talks about success, they would absolutely, every one of them, tell you must have a routine. You can call it a schedule, you can call it a routine, you can call it whatever you want, but you must have a routine. And the exact same thing that you're talking about is something that I went through the exact same thing, man. When COVID hit, we don't go to the gym no more. I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, going to hoop 5:30 in the morning. We hoop from 5:30 to about 7:30. So I'm awake, go home, shower. I'm at work early. Boom, like I'm ready to go. Like I'm good, right? And when you talk about productivity, like you're just, it's like a machine, like you're going,
Right.
But then when that hit, sleeping in a little bit later,
Right.
and then you drag in, and it's like, but it's absolutely important that you have that structure and that routine in terms of productivity, because what happens is the productivity and the activities lead to the results. It
Sure.
leads to things being finished, things being accomplished. So it's absolutely important. I had to put myself back on a routine, man.
Yep.
I had to do it. So now
Yep.
we got a gym at work. So I'll just get up and go work out at the gym. I hadn't worked out since 2000.
Sure.
Like workout,
Sure.
lifting weights, workout. Like all I would
Right.
do is just go play ball, whatever, try to keep the cardio up. Now I got to get in the gym, because if I don't do that, like my productivity is nothing.
It goes
Nothing.
out the window.
Yeah. You know, so
What I found
definitely.
is I found that I was defending my Netflix time as if it was going to give me some type of success. So it was top heavy. All the risk was on I just let it fly, like business, all that stuff was just out there, not being defended. And I'm defending Netflix time. Like I got to get all this stuff done and be done with this, that, and the other by 9 o'clock, because I got to watch, Uhtred of Bebbenberg. I got to watch all 10 of those episodes from The Last Kingdom, And it's like, so you're defending Netflix rather than defending your business, your success, your legacy, all those things. And when I realized I had somewhere it had flip-flopped, I'm like, man, I got to get this back on track to where I defend my legacy and my business versus defending Netflix. Netflix is going to be fine. They've already made their money. So whether I catch it tomorrow, whether I catch it at 11 o'clock at night, it doesn't matter. I need to defend my legacy,
Right. And it's important that, our listeners understand that, you see, we're being candid about the fact that none of this is guaranteed or set in stone. You're talking about the challenges that you have with keeping your routine. I talk about how I fall off of my routine. Sometimes I'm not motivated, but the difference and the reason why we're able to achieve success is that we've got that self-awareness to say, hey, look, you need to get your act together and get back in the game, get back on the schedule. So it's not to say that just because you have a routine or a schedule, it means that everything's going to be fine and good. No, things will come up that will distract you. Things will come up that will hinder you. But the key is having the self-awareness and then also developing the discipline to get back to what has worked for you and has given you the desired results.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
What advice would you give to your younger self in terms of achieving goals, getting things done, and getting the things that you really want to desire? What, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give to your younger self to help promote that?
I would say always be honest and never fear. Like, once your honesty takes you down a path that no one else is traveling, or people are saying, no, don't go down there, regardless of what people are talking about or what has always been the norm or what people have done, if your honesty takes you down a road, follow that honesty. And if you ever find yourself by yourself or against opposition that's saying whatever, don't fear, don't be afraid, bust them in the mouth.
Right. And it's okay to have opposition.
Yep.
It's okay to be alone. It's those things are fine, because sometimes in that loneliness, in the solitude, is where you can hear that still voice that is speaking to you. Because a lot of times, if you've always got people around, you're always doing something, then sometimes we aren't really listening to our inner voice that's really guiding us.
Sure.
So I always ask about books, because there have been some books that I have read or listened to that I feel have been quite influential in helping me to meet some of the goals that I've met, and have actually helped me to set bigger goals and press for bigger things. So what books would you say have been influential for you?
There's like 3 books that have really helped me, or that just, I don't, you know how it is. You read something, we've read a whole bunch of books, but for whatever reason, it's that one or the 2 or 3 books that just stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it would be Millionaire Next Door, because to me, that was like regular people. And it literally gave real-time statistics from people who had put in the research to find out from however many millionaires, what they did to get their money and their wealth, and what they did to keep it, and how they conduct themselves. And it was all based off of statistics and tests. It wasn't just some dude's opinion and, him talking about stuff. So that book was amazing to me. I still got a copy of it. I still thumb through it because it's just amazing. And then Communicating for Change by Andy Stanley. It revolutionized the way I orate when I do public speaking, and how I put my message together. Because before that, I may exegete scripture, but it was poorly structured in the way I preached it. And I wanted to sound good. I didn't want to leave embarrassed. So that was a good book because he has a structure in there that's amazing. Me, God, or me, we, God, you, we. And you just have to read the book to figure it out. But it's really good if you want to communicate, if you want to write a book, any of those types of things. He's got this structure in there that makes it really easy to plug in information. And then last but not least, it's a magazine, and they also wrote a book. And the magazine isn't out anymore, but it was amazing. You can like find old copies on YouTube. But it's the Millionaire Blueprint. And I think his name was Tom Spinks. He used to play in the NFL. And he made a magazine. And what he would do is kind of like what you're doing right now. He would go to millionaires who may have made 1, 2 million, 5 million. And he would just ask them questions because they were regular people who had finally figured out how to sell, 100,000 T-shirts, and they're millionaires now, or they got a lawn care business and they made $1 million off of it. He would just ask them regular questions in the magazines, and they would literally be willing enough to tell exactly how they did what they did. And so that blew my mind. And those 3, that's my top 3.
Yeah. I mean, and it's amazing to me how much information we have access to. And I keep going back to this because I think about people who are, I guess, I don't want to say poor, but I guess you can say people who are poor, people who, and I don't even want to say less fortunate. Like, I don't even like that term. But people who may not be where they want to be. I think that's the best way for me to put it. People who feel like they are not where they want to be. It's amazing to me why they feel that way and why they are that way, because there's too much information that is available to help you not be there.
Yep.
There's too much information available that can help anyone elevate and move themselves and to move their status. It's
Sure.
just too much. So in 2020, it's something, I guess, it's something else that kind of just bothers me. I'm like, man, I don't like to see someone feeling defeated, someone feeling as if there's nothing that they can do about their situation. Just like you, my wife and I, we've been through challenges. I've had a house foreclosed. I've had cars repossessed. I've been fired from jobs. But none of that has kept me from achieving. None of that will ever keep me from achieving, because there are too many opportunities and there's too much information out here for me to change. I went from 17 years in retail to being in the car industry and selling, being a commissioned salesperson, and being able to provide for my family doing that without any prior knowledge before 3 years ago about this.
Yeah, love it.
Like no prior knowledge. And it's not because I'm super smart. It's not because I'm gifted. It's not because I'm talented. It's simply because I was willing to, one, seek an opportunity. And two, once I had the opportunity, I was willing to go and find the information to take advantage, the best advantage of that opportunity.
Right.
And now even every day I'm looking for something else that I could do, something different that I can do to take advantage of where I am now. And advantage meaning to maximize that opportunity.
Sure.
You know, and it pains me when I see folks who don't realize the same thing. And I think part of it goes back to the question about books. It's about not even knowing. And because I read a book that was Think and Grow Rich, or because I listened to Jim Rohn, or because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, or listened to Rich Dad Poor Dad, because I allowed those things into my head and my subconscious, it expanded my confidence that I can find a way.
Sure.
And there is a way. But if no one tells you, hey, there's a way out of this situation, if no one tells you, or maybe even if you don't see someone else, maybe that has been in the same situation as you and has improved, then you wouldn't know any better.
Right.
And that's part of the reason why I'm doing this, is because I really want to be able to touch somebody who has a story very similar to yours and mine, that may think that they can't do anything else. But to hear us talking about it, then, oh, well, if they did it, then I can do it too. Let me start looking, right? And then that just, it opens up a whole nother world for them.
Right.
What
Absolutely.
would you say has been your biggest challenge to achieving success?
Trusting myself. I think that I'm probably the type of person that's just going to keep getting in his own way. Not so much anymore, but that is what kept me from the journey that I've now found, right? We're talking about those flare-ups and those flashes of brilliance. I remember when I was about to start pastoring, and there was a couple of buildings in the city that I was looking at, and it was in the hood. So I'm like, man, that'd be great, because that's where I want to minister at, And so I called to ask about the buildings, and they're like, Pastor Bibb, we really want to get them to you, because it was a bank in Virginia that owned them. And so when I looked them up, I found their number, and called them, and they're like, we really want to get them to you. They're about, I think one building was $10,000, the other one was $12,000. It was actually 3 buildings. They were all in the $10,000 to $12,000 range, so about $33,000 worth of property. And I thought to myself, man, well, I can't afford that. I kind of laughed at them. They called me back and said, can you afford $2,000 somewhere in there? I'm like, I can't afford anything. I don't have that, just laying around.
Right.
And so they finally called back and said, we want to give you the buildings, all $33,000 worth of property. We want to give it to you. We just would have to sign paperwork. We'll pay the closing costs. I mean, the whole nine. Mm-hmm. But I was still in that space where I was being mentally blocked by other people. So I was like, I'm going to go talk to my pastor about this. This is amazing. And he's like, yeah, we'll get to it. So he drags his feet. And it's not even his fault. This is my fault, right?
Right.
Because I should have just went through, got the building, signed the paperwork, and push come to shove, even if I didn't put a church right there, you got property now. Like, they just gave you something that you can use to better the community one way or the other. But I allowed myself to allow somebody else to kind of get in the way and just botch the whole thing. They ended up selling it to whoever sold it. Then I called the guy some odd years later to see how much he would sell it for, and he wouldn't call me back. And then he was doing some odd pricing on the buildings, like way higher than they were worth. But it was a lesson that has stuck with me, that you have wisdom. God is giving you gifts of wisdom, and you need to use them when it's time to use them. And if he gives it to you, do not stop for anybody. Do not stop for yourself. But mainly that was my fault. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
When Jen, she had a lot of money from her accident, and I was looking into ways to invest and things like that.
Right.
And I looked at gold at the time. At this time, this was probably like 15 years ago or something. Gold was $300 an ounce, right? So I'm like, oh man, that's cool. They say gold never goes backwards. It always goes up, even if it takes a couple of dips, right? So I'm like, oh man, that's amazing. So you mean to tell me if I invest in gold 10 years from now, it's going to be, however much higher, and it's never going to go back. That's amazing, right?
Right.
But do you think I invested in the gold?
No.
No, because you're looking at people, you're listening to this person, that person.
Right.
So I didn't do it. Now gold is like $1,700 an ounce, something stupid. Whereas like you wouldn't have to ask for any loan. You wouldn't have to do any of those things because you'd be good right now had you just trusted the wisdom that God had given you. So I get in my own way. That's my biggest nemesis, is getting in my own way and stopping the flow of the gifting that's in me,
Right. And I don't think that's unique for you. I think that absolutely a lot of people are in the exact same situation, not listening to that inner voice. And I think it just goes back to, or speaks to, how important it is sometimes for us to have quiet time or to insulate ourselves from the noise around us. And that noise can be other people, it can be other things, but it's very important that we're able to do that. Something you just said was that, you missed out on the buildings and you feel like you missed out. Well, you started out by saying you talked to your pastor and he said, and he dragged his feet. Like you started out saying that, but then you came right back behind that and you said, but that was on me. Yep. What I want to highlight there is personal responsibility. So you have an attitude of personal responsibility that it's not up to someone else.
No, sir.
If something doesn't work, the gold thing, it didn't, you're essentially what you're saying is that you didn't do gold because you listened to other people. However, ultimately you're taking responsibility and say, I did not take action. Yep. I didn't have those properties because I did not take action. I think that personal responsibility is absolutely a necessary character trait when it comes to wanting to be successful. And the reason is because just what you just illustrated, if you are the type of person that will not accept personal responsibility for results, and you will say that, oh, well, this didn't happen because that person didn't do this, or it didn't happen because this person didn't do this. As long as that is your mentality, and, it's that external locus of control that they talk about, don't put control in anyone else's hand but your own. That's absolutely key to success. You have to have personal responsibility. Somebody says, if it's got to be, it's gonna be me, something like that. Or if it's gonna be me, it's got to be something similar to that. But if it's got to be, it's got to be me. Nobody else is gonna make it happen. And I think that is very important that people understand that no one else is responsible for your success but you.
Absolutely.
Bottom line. It doesn't matter what happens anywhere around you. An example of that is this past month, COVID hit like probably second week in March or something. So March was like a really slow month for us. Like the last 2 weeks, there was absolutely nothing happening. Then next month, April. Well, we were told that we would be guaranteed a certain amount of income for April because of the COVID-19 situation. Well, needless to say, there are some people whose production went down because, COVID-19. But what's amazing is that we have one gentleman in our dealership so we all had a goal to meet. He was probably the only seasoned veteran that exceeded his goal. His goal was to sell 18. Both his and mine were to sell 18 cars last month. I only did 14 and a half, 15 cars. He did like 22. The difference between those two people, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, is that he was determined that regardless of the situation, whether it's COVID-19 or not, he was going to take personal responsibility for his income in the month of April. Whereas for me, I sort of, if I'm honest with myself, I chilled a little bit. I didn't press as hard. I wasn't every day being as creative as I could be to try to find other ways to make it happen, right? And I would say that's the difference. It has nothing to do with COVID. It has nothing to do with the job. It's me. It's because I didn't put forth enough effort and have enough activity to reach my goal. So it's very important that we do that, because if you don't, then what's going to happen this month? You're going to have another bad month because it's COVID-19?
Right.
No. Like you can't do that. You have to take personal responsibility for your actions. Now,
you do.
What would you say has been your greatest accomplishment?
I think my kids would be my greatest accomplishment, because I'm able to raise them completely different than everything we've talked about in this interview. So I study them, whatever gifting I see that they have, or whatever they seem to be even a little bit good at, I research it and I want to look into it and see if that's them or not. Sometimes it's not, they're not done with it, or are they finished with it very quickly? But other times it's something that sticks. And so with my youngest son, his thing is football. He wants to make it to the NFL. He sleeps with his football. And this has been since he was like 2 years old. He sleeps with his football. He wants to throw the football. He wants to play football. So then I put him in tackle for his first year last year, and he got hit that first good time in practice, and they popped him because he wasn't holding his body right, and hit him in his stomach. And he just held it in for the whole 2-hour practice. And after practice, he came to the car, just bust out crying, I said, "You want to quit?" He was like, "No, I want to keep doing this." Then I knew he loved football.
Right.
My oldest son wants to be an FBI agent. He studies. He's a great student. My daughter wants to be a teacher. They are extremely polite. They're extremely helpful. They're extremely respectful. And they're just my biggest highlight, just watching them grow and watching them, gain qualities and skills as it relates to character. They're just my biggest accomplishment, hands down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what would you say you enjoy most about your success?
Currently freedom, freedom to do what I want to do.
Right.
Freedom from the first, I guess you could say, 30 years of my life, right? Mm-hmm. Like freedom from all of that dysfunction, freedom from those people, and not just church people, but just anybody who was a distraction, just freedom from the old Tim, that would be it.
Yeah. And that freedom is definitely a loaded word, because it really encompasses a lot of things. You can talk about time freedom, you can talk about money freedom, you can talk about thought freedom. So that is very big, because that's something that I find is kind of common, is that when you look at people who have achieved a measure of success, one of the things that they frequently talk about is that concept of freedom.
It's true.
Freedom to do what you want. And it's not just freedom to do what you want when you want, but it's freedom sometimes to help others. It's freedom, because sometimes when you're not there, you can't help. You may want to help other people, but you can't. But once you get to a certain place, a certain level, and it's not only financially, it could be in thought, right? Yep. You can help open somebody else's mind, and that is a form of freedom. And that's, again, part of what it is that we're trying to do here is to help enable and empower people and say, hey, look, you can have freedom. You can do what it is. You don't have to stay in your current situation.
Right. So. Absolutely. And I think you explained it, perfectly in terms of not just financial freedom, but just freedom in general, like with book school, with me kind of walking hand in hand with people who want to publish a book, doing the cover for them, helping them upload it, helping them get the copyright, all those good things. it's a very satisfying feeling. But I don't get paid for every single phone call I do, because I'm constantly doing free phone calls, or just going over what is required of me to help them, because it's amazing to me when I see them publish their book or come out with something, and it's like, man, and I see the smile on their face, and I see them free from who they thought they could be, and from the complaints, and it's a lot of writing I have to do, and they're writing forever, but to see them like come out with something. So it really is that freedom to help people, freedom to be who I am without a hindrance. And like you said, really without a hindrance from me, I'm not getting in the way anymore. And so that freedom is amazing. I used to get in the way for everything. Waking up, just any and everything you can think of, I got in the way.
Yeah. And it really truly is, it truly is amazing. And I wish we could like put into words for people to really understand. But when you get to a certain place, and again, I don't want people to think that it's a matter, you feel like you've arrived, but one of my other guests said it's about the journey. You start savoring and enjoying the journey. You wake up every day excited about what is going to happen today. What am I going to accomplish today? What am I going to get done? Who am I going to help today? Who am I going to be a blessing to today? That's freedom. That's success. And when you get to that place in your life where you're not waking up wondering, okay, what's bad is going to happen today? What do I have to deal with today? When you, because some people actually wake up that way. Right? They wake up dreading to wake up. They don't want to get out of bed because of all of these concerns. But it's such a great feeling when you can wake up with excitement. When you're excited about getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go and exercise so you can get your day started. Like it's a whole nother way of living your life.
Right.
It's awesome. So we talked about accomplishments. We talked about success, talked about what you enjoy. Without a doubt, there's struggle, challenge, and disappointment on the way. You said you feel like your biggest challenge was yourself at one time. Like you just kept getting in your own way. Disappointment. It's going to happen, people.
Sure.
Disappointment will happen. But part of the success mindset is knowing how to deal with that disappointment, is dealing with it and moving on from it. And if it requires making a plan so you don't have that disappointment again. So what would you say has been your greatest disappointment, and how did you navigate and get past that?
I would say that my greatest disappointment was that's a deep question, brother. You ain't crying, are you, man?
No.
No, but my deepest disappointment would be probably disappointing my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so if you take away any kind of nagging that a wife could do, if you take away any kind of frustration that a wife can have, now all of this is based on your nonsense, right? As a husband, as a man.
Right.
Like,
True story.
You, sir, are completely ridiculous, right? So my biggest like failure, disappointment will be letting her down. Mm-hmm. Like not being able to lead her, not being able to provide for her, not being able to protect her, shelter her, all the things that are necessary for a husband to do, and just failing miserably at it. Right. That would be my biggest failure. And I think the way that I came back from it, first off, it wasn't just me. And I think as an add-on to any story I tell, none of this stuff is going to just, it was all me, but there were counselors that helped me, pastors that helped me. And then there was my wife, who had mercy and grace for me to allow me to grow into myself and grow into my manhood. But the way I overcame it is, like we talked about, is ultimately taking responsibility. Mm-hmm. And when I took responsibility, and I even apologized to her, set her down and said, look, I'm sorry for A, B, C, D, F, G, and just, the whole alphabet. I'm sorry for all of it. And I see I see what I did to you. I see how my actions affected you. I see how not having enough money made you feel mentally, and how it's like you can't come home to like not having enough money and then think I'm gonna be some great, gracious wife. Like, oh, thank you for being a bum. Like, you're so amazing. You know,
Right.
it just doesn't happen like that. So the way I was able to overcome it was by just facing the truth and saying you need to man up, basically.
Right.
And that helped me overcome the failure of not being a good husband.
Right. You know, and it happens, you know, for us, you know, like I told you, we went through foreclosure. That was
Yeah.
that was like a 3-year period. So could you imagine that? Like, you talk about providing shelter, right? Foreclosure.
Yeah.
So
stuff like that.
I mean, it's just not having enough money. Well, and not because I didn't want to go to work, but because I couldn't find work to earn enough money to do what I needed to do. So you talk about disappointment, like it's absolutely understandable. And it's gonna happen, but that's part of the journey. That's
Sure.
part of the process, so that when you get through that, then you now understand and you have a different appreciation, you know, for everything. So I always like to ask that question, because I don't want anybody to be misled or think that it's a bed of roses, because it's not. You're going to have those things. And part of the training and part of the maturation process is being able to handle that, deal with that. And that requires taking personal responsibility. It requires self-awareness, and then taking the steps that you need to do to get better.
Absolutely. Putting the action behind it.
Yeah. So you hit on this earlier. How has this journey helped you to become the best version of yourself, or helped you to start becoming the best version of yourself? How are you becoming? Because it's not a destination. It's a journey. So
Sure.
how has your success and what you have accomplished, how is it helping you to become the best version of yourself?
Man, you got some great questions, man. But I think that it has helped me let go of the shame, the toxic shame of not being enough, of not being worth anything, of having low self-esteem, no value, when the whole time the value is there,
Right.
the worth is there, but me just not knowing it. So from these milestones, I really believe that self-esteem has to be built. To put it in illustration form, from a infant or a fetus even, and it grows, infant and, you know, toddler, adolescent, you know, preteen, teenager. I feel like that's what self-esteem does. And so every step of my success, no matter how big, no matter how small, it is like either Gerber baby food or steak and potato, whatever,
Right.
whatever level I'm at, it's energy to feed that self-esteem and that self-worth and that value to say, I am somebody.
Yeah.
I am worth it. Like I'm going to be great. I'm going to be exactly what God has called me to be. And not to over spiritualize it, but just to say that, man, every time I put a notch in the old belt, it makes me feel better about Tim. Because if I don't feel good about Tim, and not in some nonchalant, prideful way, but if I don't feel good about Tim, I don't know how my businesses can help people, ministry can help. I can't help anybody. So yeah, for sure. It's helped me become a better person, because it proved to Tim that I was worth something.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that's definitely a key to success, I think, because if you don't have that self-worth, that self-confidence, that, you know, you are able, that you know, I say, I am, you know, I am worthy, I am strong. You know, if you don't have the self-confidence there, then it really and truly will prevent you. And sometimes it's almost like a chicken before the egg, the chicken or the egg, which come first type thing, because do you have the self-confidence before you start taking the action, right?
Yeah.
Or is it taking the action that helps build the self-confidence?
Yeah.
Which is it? But ultimately, I really feel like you have to start taking the action, because nothing happens until you start working. Faith doesn't start happen until you start working, because it says what? Faith without works is dead.
Sure.
So the faith doesn't even start to do what it's supposed to do until you start working. And I think that is the faith, is you working, because you're working, knowing and expecting that something's going to happen. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So I absolutely appreciate your time, Tim.
Yes, sir.
It's always good to see you, man. And I feel like I don't know, man. I feel like I honestly wish that we would have been like closer, like growing up, because like I said, I look at you now, man, and I'm just like, gosh, I feel like we're so like-minded in terms of just wanting to be the best that we can be for our wives and for our families, and wanting to be successful, and not willing or not afraid to fail, right? Like you said, fail fast. I feel like, there's so much we have in common there. I'm like, man, every time I look, that's what I say, every time I look up, like, I'm just so inspired, because I'm like, Tim, he's doing it, he's doing
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
And again, like you said, it's not just you, it's you and Jenny, and she's doing great things as well. So pass on the invitation to her, please. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our podcast. Make sure to connect with us on all of our platforms. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can also listen to the podcast on anchor.fm. Best of all, make sure to check out the website at achievesuccesspodcast.com.